My hands tensed on the steering wheel as I turned onto the familiar winding road that led to the Lambert estate. The gleaming mansion loomed ahead, a monument to old money and even older secrets. I'd sworn never to return here, yet here I was, driving up to the very place that represented everything I'd lost. "You okay, Dad?" Hazel's voice pulled me from my thoughts. At 16, she had her mother's high cheekbones, but thankfully my eyes, observant and steady. "I am fine, sweetheart." I was not. Coming back to the Lambert family reunion was like willingly walking into a snake pit. But I had my reasons. 5 years. 5 years since Natalie had shattered our marriage and the Lamberts had helped destroy what remained of my life. Now I was Liam Sullivan, divorced architect whose career had somehow survived the scandal. Returning with our daughter to face the family that had treated me like an unwelcome stain since the day I demarried into their precious dynasty. As we approached the ornate front gate with its pretentious L ironwork, Hazel suddenly grabbed my arm. "Dad, stop right here," she whispered, her eyes wide with alarm. "We see not go through the main entrance." I paused, confused. But I nodded. We turned away from the driveway, and that's when it happened. A sleek black Bentley came barreling through the gate at dangerous speed, exactly where we would have been standing. "Goodness," I muttered, pulling Hazel closer as the car screeched to a halt. The driver's door flew open and out stepped Preston Lambert, Natalie's younger brother. His face was flushed with what I recognized as his usual cocktail of arrogance and indulgence. "Well, if it is not the disgraced Sullivan," he slurred, stumbling slightly, "thought you'd sneak in the service entrance where you belong." Hazel's grip on my arm tightened, but I kept my expression neutral. "Hello, Preston? Still driving under the influence, I see. Some things never change." Preston's eyes narrowed. But before he could respond, another voice called out from behind us. "Liam, is that you?" I turned to see Vivian Lambert, Natalie's mother, approaching from the side garden. She looked as if she'd aged 20 years since I'd last seen her. Intriguing, the Lamberts spent a fortune keeping up appearances. "Mrs. Lambert." I nodded coldly. "You actually came." Her eyes darted nervously between Hazel and me. "Natalie was not sure you would." "I gave my word to Hazel," I said simply. "She wanted to see her cousins." What I did not say was that I had waited years for this invitation, for this precise moment when the Lamberts would open their gates to me again, never suspecting what I was bringing with me. "Grandmother, can Dad and I use the east entrance?" Hazel asked sweetly. "It's closer to where everyone's gathering." Vivian hesitated, then nodded. "Of course, dear." Her gaze lingered on me with unmistakable suspicion. "Liam, I trust you'll behave yourself." I smiled. "I always do, Mrs. Lambert." As we walked away, Hazel whispered, "Thank you for stopping, Dad. Preston always drives like that. Last time he nearly hit one of the gardeners." I looked down at my daughter, suddenly wondering what else she had observed over the years during her visits here without me. "How did you know he was coming?" "I did not," she admitted. "But Uncle Harvey's car is always parked by the main entrance and Preston always tries to clip it. He thinks it's funny." Smart girl. So much more observant than anyone gave her credit for. As we rounded the corner of the massive house, I caught my first glimpse of the reunion in full swing. Dozens of Lambert relatives mingled on the grand lawn, champagne flutes glinting in the afternoon sun. And there she was, Natalie, laughing with a group that included Dominic Vale, the man she had left me for. "Dad?" Hazel was watching me carefully. "Remember what you promised. No scenes." I squeezed her shoulder gently. "Do not worry, sweetheart. I'm not here to make a scene. I was here for something else entirely, something 5 years in the making." The Lambert family reunion buzzed with the privileged energy I remembered all too well. Old money strutted around in new clothes, discussing stock portfolios between gossip about who had work done. I stood at the periphery, nursing a scotch I had no intention of drinking. "Sullivan," a voice boomed from behind me. "Did not expect to see you breathing the rarefied air up here again." I turned to face Harvey Lambert, Natalie's father and the patriarch of this dynasty built on timber, real estate, and other people's misfortunes. At 73, he still carried himself with the arrogance of a man who never heard the word no. "Harvey," I replied, offering my hand. "Thank you for allowing me to attend." He hesitated before taking it, his grip unnecessarily firm. Did not have much choice. Natalie insisted it would be good for Hazel. His eyes narrowed. "Heard you redoing well these days. That modern art museum downtown, your design, was not it?" It was. I did not elaborate on how I'd clawed my way back from the professional abyss his family had pushed me into. Well, he said with practiced magnanimity, perhaps things worked out for the best. I smiled thinly. Perhaps they did. Over Harvey's shoulder, I spotted Dominic Vale approaching, Natalie at his side. They made a picture-perfect couple, both tall, blonde, and dripping with the easy confidence of people who never faced consequences. Liam, Natalie greeted me, her voice carrying that practiced warmth she used for awkward social situations. I am glad you could make it. Hazel's thrilled. I nodded. Would not miss it. Dominic extended his hand. Sullivan, good to see you. 10 years ago, when he'd been merely Natalie's college friend visiting for dinner, I'd shaken that same hand across my own dining table. Now I took it again, noting the monogrammed cufflinks, DVL. So he'd finally managed to legally become Dominic Vale Lambert. The merger was complete. How's the architectural world treating you? He asked, in the tone of someone inquiring about a hobby rather than a career. Beautifully, I replied. Just finished the Westlake Tower project. His smile flickered. The Westlake deal had been one he'd tried and failed to secure for his own development company. Congratulations, he managed. Lucky break. Luck had nothing to do with it, I said pleasantly. Natalie cleared her throat. Liam, I was hoping we could talk privately later about Hazel's college tours this fall. Of course, I agreed, though she seems to have her heart set on RISD. Rhode Island School of Design. About as far from the business schools the Lamberts traditionally attended as one could get. Natalie's perfect smile tightened. Yes. Well, we should discuss options. The Lambert Foundation has connections at Harvard and Yale that could, I am sure we'll figure it out, I interrupted smoothly. As the conversation drifted to meaningless pleasantries, I glanced around for Hazel, spotting her with her cousins by the pool. She caught my eye and gave a small thumbs up, our signal that everything was proceeding as planned. Nearby, I noticed Vivian Lambert deep in conversation with her sister, Beatrice, both of them shooting glances my way. I excused myself from Natalie and Dominic and made my way toward the bar, deliberately passing close enough to overhear. "Ca not believe she invited him," Beatrice was saying. "After what he tried to do to the family shoe," Vivian cautioned. Natalie insisted. "Something about showing Hazel they can be civil." "Civil?" After he nearly, Beatrice stopped abruptly as she noticed me. I nodded politely. "Ladies. Lovely party." Vivian's smile was glacial. "So glad you could come, Liam. Though I am surprised you wanted to." "Family is important," I said simply, walking away before they could respond. That evening, as the sunset painted the estate in deceptively warm hues, I found myself alone on the terrace, watching the Lambert dynasty in their natural habitat. The divorce had granted Natalie primary custody of Hazel, with me receiving generous visitation, a court's concession to the character assassination the Lamberts had orchestrated. They painted me as unstable, obsessive about my work, temperamental. The irony was that they made me become everything they falsely claimed I was. "Mr. Sullivan?" A soft voice interrupted my thoughts. I turned to find Eliza Perry, the Lamberts' longtime housekeeper, standing in the shadows of the terrace. "Mrs. Perry," I said warmly. "It's been a long time." "5 years," she nodded, her eyes darting around to ensure we were not observed. "I was not sure I should speak to you," but she hesitated. "Is everything all right?" "No," she said quietly. "And I think you should know something. About the night before you and Ms. Natalie separated." A chill ran down my spine. "I am listening." She leaned closer. "I was not supposed to be working that night, but Mr. Lambert called me in for an emergency. Said there had been an accident in the library. When I arrived, Mr. Dominic was there with Mr. Lambert and Ms. Natalie. There was broken glass and Ms. Natalie was crying." "What kind of accident?" "I do not know exactly. But Mr. Lambert kept saying it's taken care of. No one will ever know. And later, when I was cleaning, I found." She hesitated again. "Found what, Mrs. Perry?" "A cufflink. With your initials. But it was bent and had what looked like blood on it." She shook her head. "The next day, everything happened so fast. The separation announcement, you moving out, those terrible stories in the papers. I always wondered. My mind raced. Do you still have the cufflink?" She shook her head. "Mr. Lambert took it. But I thought you should know. All these years, it did not sit right with me." Before I could respond, Hazel appeared at the terrace door. "Dad? Mom's looking for you. She says it's time for the family photo." Mrs. Perry melted away as quietly as she appeared. "Coming, sweetheart," I said. my mind still reeling from this new information. As we walked back inside, Hazel whispered, "Did you talk to Mrs. Perry?" I looked at my daughter sharply. "You knew she wanted to speak with me?" Hazel did not meet my eyes. "I might have mentioned to her that you were coming today." I studied my daughter's face, seeing a calculation there I'd never noticed before. "Hazel, what else have not you told me?" She finally looked up, her expression eerily reminiscent of my own when I'd made the decision to return here. "Lots of things, Dad. But do not worry. You'll know everything soon." The Lambert family photo was a choreographed display of dynasty and dominance, for generations arranged by height and importance, with Harvey and Vivian seated regally at the center. I stood at the far edge, included only because Hazel had insisted. "A little to the left, Mr. Sullivan," directed the photographer, a nervous man clearly aware of the family politics at play. I complied, noting how Dominic had positioned himself directly behind Harvey, the crown prince behind the king. As camera flashes popped, I caught sight of a familiar figure slipping through the garden doors. Theodore, Teddy Lambert, Natalie's cousin and the family's designated black sheep. The last I'd heard, he'd been disinherited after a spectacular meltdown at Harvey's 70th birthday party. After the photos, I made my way through the crowd until I found Teddy alone by the bar, already several drinks deep. "Well, if it is not my fellow exile," he slurred, raising his glass in a mock salute. "Welcome back to hell, Sullivan." "Teddy," I nodded. "Surprised to see you here." He barked a harsh laugh. "Grandfather's dying wish. Family unity, and all that nonsense." He leaned in conspiratorially. "The old man's got 6 months, tops. Aggressive pancreatic cancer. But do not tell anyone I told you. That's the family's latest dirty little secret." I feigned surprise, though I'd known about Harvey's diagnosis for months. "Sorry to hear that." Teddy waved dismissively. "Do not be. He's finally getting what he deserves." He lowered his voice. "Just like dear cousin Natalie, and that snake Dominic will get theirs." My interest sharpened. "What do you mean?" Teddy's bloodshot eyes gleamed. "You think you're the only one they've messed over? Join the club, architect boy." He glanced around before continuing. "Meet me in the old boathouse in an hour. There's something you should see." Before I could press him further, Natalie appeared, her smile tightening when she saw us together. "Teddy, I see you found Liam," she said coolly. "I hope you're not boring him with your conspiracy theories." "Just catching up with a fellow member of the Screwed by the Lambertus Club," Teddy replied cheerfully. "We rethinking of getting jackets made." Natalie's laugh was brittle. "Liam, can we have that talk now? About Hazel." I excused myself from Teddy with a meaningful look that promised I'd find him later. Natalie led me to the library, the same room Mrs. Perry had mentioned in her story about the night before our separation. The library remained unchanged. Leather-bound books no one read, hunting trophies no one had hunted, and a portrait of Harvey Lambert looking smugly down from above the fireplace. "You looking well, Liam," Natalie began, taking a seat on one of the leather couches. "Thank you. So are you." It was true. At 42, she was still beautiful, though now there was a hardness around her eyes that had not been there during our marriage. "I'll get straight to the point," she continued. "Hazel tells me you supporting her application to RISD. I am. She's talented. She's 17, Liam. She does not know what she wants. She's known she wanted to be an artist since she was 5. I countered. "Just because it does not fit the Lambert 5-year plan does not mean it's wrong." Natalie sighed. "This is not about the Lambert name. That's about practical choices. Art is a hobby, not a career. Like architecture." I raised an eyebrow. "That's different. You build things people need. Art is subjective." I studied her, wondering if she had any idea how much she sounded like her father. "Is that why you really wanted to talk to me? To convince me to discourage our daughter's dreams?" Natalie's expression shifted almost imperceptibly. "No, I wanted to clear the air between us." She hesitated. "It's been 5 years, Liam. Do not you think it's time we moved past what happened? Which part? I asked evenly. The part where you betrayed me with Dominic? Or the part where your family systematically destroyed my reputation and nearly ended my career? You know it was not like that, she insisted, her voice hardening. You were acting erratically. The things you were accusing us of were true, I finished for her. And now I have proof. The color drained from her face. What are you talking about? Before I could answer, the library door opened and Dominic walked in, his easy smile faltering when he saw the tension between us. Everything okay in here? He asked, placing a proprietary hand on Natalie's shoulder. Fine, she said quickly. Liam and I were just discussing Hazel's college plans. Dominic nodded, though his eyes remained wary. Harvey's looking for you. Something about the trust agreements he wants to go over while everyone's here. I'll be right there, she promised, waiting until he left before turning back to me. What proof, Liam? I smiled. Nothing that not wait until after the reunion. Enjoy your evening, Natalie. I left her sitting there, her composure finally cracked. Outside, I checked my watch, nearly time to meet Teddy at the boathouse. As I crossed the lawn, I spotted Hazel deep in conversation with her cousin Riley, Teddy's younger sister. They fell silent as I approached. Everything okay? I asked. Perfect, Hazel replied, with a smile that did not reach her eyes. Riley was just telling me about the trust agreements grandfather is distributing tomorrow. I raised an eyebrow. Riley, a sharp-eyed 20-year-old who'd always been friendly to me, nodded. He's restructuring everything before he gets worse. She lowered her voice. There's a special provision for Hazel. Mom says it's because grandfather feels guilty about what happened with you. I glanced at Hazel, who was studying her shoes with sudden interest. That's very generous of him. Dad, Hazel said suddenly. Are not you supposed to be meeting someone right now? I checked my watch again. You rewrite. If you excuse me, ladies. As I walked away, I heard Riley ask, does he know? And Hazel's response, not everything, not yet. The old boathouse sat at the edge of the Lambert property, partially hidden by willow trees. It had been Harvey's pride and joy once, a place where he stored vintage wooden boats and held poker games away from Vivian's disapproving eye. Now it looked neglected, the white paint peeling, the dock sagging. I found Teddy inside, slouched in an old chair, a bottle of whiskey between his feet. You came, he said, sounding genuinely surprised. Thought Natalie might have talked you out of it. I am not that easily swayed anymore, I replied, taking in the dusty interior, covered furniture, cobwebs, and the lingering smell of varnish and mildew. What did you want to show me? Teddy struggled to his feet and moved to an old cabinet. You ever wonder how Dominic went from being a middling real estate agent to Harvey's golden boy so quickly? I assumed being in a relationship with the boss's daughter helped. Teddy laughed. That was part of it, but not the whole story. He pulled out a thick folder and handed it to me. Take a look at these. Financial records from the Lambert Foundation from the year before you and Natalie split up. I opened the folder, scanning the documents inside: donation records, tax filings, investment reports. Nothing immediately suspicious. Keep going, Teddy urged. Look at the disbursements to Veiled Development. I flipped through until I found it. A series of massive payments to Dominic's company, far beyond what any legitimate contract would justify. What am I looking at? I asked, though I was beginning to understand. Money laundering, Teddy stated flatly. Harvey was cleaning cash through Dominic's company, and in return, Dominic got investment capital, connections, and eventually Natalie. How did you get these? I asked, still paging through the damning evidence. I worked for the foundation before my departure, Teddy explained. IV had these hidden for years, waiting for the right moment. And that moment is now? Why? Teddy's eyes hardened. Because Harvey's dying and he's rewriting all the trusts. Those of us who know too much are being cut out. He took a long pull from the whiskey bottle. I heard your firm is designing the new Lambert Foundation headquarters. This was news to me. Am I? That's the announcement Harvey's planning for tomorrow's brunch. Some kind of olive branch to you, supposedly. But really it's just another way to keep you controlled. My mind raced. If what Teddy was saying was true and the documents certainly suggested it was, this changed everything. What do you want, Teddy? I asked directly. Same thing you do, he replied with a bitter smile. Justice. Revenge. Whatever you want to call it. And what makes you think that's what I want? Teddy's laugh was hollow. Because I've seen your face every time you look at Dominic. It's the same way I look at Harvey. He leaned forward. I know you've been planning something. Hazel told Riley you've been making calls, asking questions about the old days. I kept my expression neutral. Hazel talks too much. Or maybe she's smarter than any of us realize, Teddy countered. She knows what they did to you, Liam. What they were still doing. I closed the folder. I need to think about this. Do not think too long, Teddy warned. Tomorrow, Harvey announces the new trust arrangements. Once those papers are signed, it'll be too late for some of us. As I left the boathouse, the weight of the folder heavy in my hands, I spotted a figure moving quickly away from the building. Someone had been listening. But who? I hurried back toward the main house, my mind processing this new information and how it all fit into my own carefully constructed plan. 5 years of patience, of rebuilding, of waiting for this exact moment. I could not afford mistakes now. Inside, the party was still in full swing, though with a slightly drunken edge as the night wore on. I scanned the crowd for Hazel but did not see her. Instead, I found myself face to face with Harvey Lambert himself. Sullivan, he said, his voice low. A word in private. It was not a request. I followed him to his study, a masculine sanctuary of leather and mahogany where the real Lambert business happened. He closed the door behind us with a decisive click. I know you met with Teddy, he said without preamble. And I can guess what he showed you. I remained silent, assessing him. Harvey sighed heavily, lowering himself into his desk chair with the careful movements of a man in pain. Teddy's always been troubled, vindictive. You should not believe everything he tells you. The financial records seemed quite factual, I replied. Harvey's face remained impassive. Records can be manipulated, especially by someone with a grudge. He studied me. I am dying, Liam. Cancer. 6 months, maybe less. I am sorry to hear that. No, you're not, he said with unexpected frankness. But it does change things. How so? I've made mistakes, Harvey admitted. The way we handled your separation from Natalie, it was wrong. That's why I want you to design the new foundation headquarters. A fresh start. I regarded him skeptically. Why now, Harvey? After 5 years of blacklisting me from every major project in the city? He had the decency to look uncomfortable. Guilt, perhaps? Or the perspective that comes with facing one's mortality. He paused. And because Hazel asked me to. This surprised me. Hazel? She's a remarkable young woman. Reminds me of my late mother. Sees right through people's pretenses. Harvey leaned forward. Whatever Teddy's planning, and he is planning something, make no mistake, do not get drawn into it. For Hazel's sake. I'll keep that in mind, I said noncommittally. Harvey nodded, seemingly satisfied. The announcement will be tomorrow at brunch. The commission is substantial, Liam. It could re-establish your place in the city's architecture scene completely. My place is already established, I reminded him. Despite your best efforts. A flash of the old Harvey, hard, calculating, crossed his face. Do not mistake an olive branch for weakness, Sullivan. I am still the head of this family. For now, I said quietly and left him to ponder what I meant by that. The morning of the Lambert family brunch dawned with ominous dark clouds gathering on the horizon. Appropriate, I thought as I knotted my tie in the guest room mirror. A storm was indeed coming, though not the meteorological kind. A soft knock at the door interrupted my thoughts. I opened it to find Hazel already dressed in a simple blue dress that deliberately avoided the Lambert preference for ostentatious display. Morning, Dad, she said, slipping into the room. Sleep well. Well enough, I lied. In truth, I'd spent most of the night reviewing the documents Teddy had given me, cross-referencing them with my own research from the past 5 years. The picture they painted was even worse than I'd suspected. Hazel perched on the edge of the bed. So, did you meet with Uncle Teddy last night? I raised an eyebrow. You seem very interested in my social calendar. She shrugged with practiced casualness. Just wondering. Hazel, I said, sitting beside her, what's going on? And do not tell me nothing. You've been orchestrating this weekend like a chess master, and I want to know why. She studied her hands. I found something about 3 years ago. I was not supposed to see it, but I did. What did you find? Letters between Mom and Dominic. From before you and Mom separated. She looked up, her eyes troubled. They were not just having an affair, Dad. They were planning something against you. My heart tightened. What kind of something? I do not know exactly. The letters were vague, but they kept mentioning the plan and how grandfather would help make sure you could not interfere. And there was something about evidence they needed to get rid of. Mrs. Perry's story about the broken glass and the bloody cufflink flashed through my mind. Why did not you tell me this before? I asked gently. Because I did not understand what it meant until recently, she admitted. And because I was afraid of what she hesitated of what you might do. Her gaze was direct now. I know you, Dad. Better than anyone. You do not forget and you do not forgive. Once I realized what they might have done to you. I was afraid of what you'd do back. She was right to be afraid. The plan I'd been cultivating these past 5 years was not about forgiveness. So why tell me now? I asked. Because grandfather is dying and he's changing all the trusts, and she hesitated, and because I found out what really happened the night before you and Mom separated. My pulse quickened. Tell me. Not yet, she said, standing abruptly. After brunch. After grandfather makes his announcement. I promise I'll tell you everything then. Hazel, trust me, Dad, she pleaded. I've been working on this for 3 years. Just a few more hours, okay? Before I could press further, another knock came at the door. This time it was Riley, looking flustered. Sorry to interrupt, she said. But Uncle Harvey wants to see Hazel right away. Something about the trust paperwork needing her signature before the brunch. Hazel gave me a significant look. I'll find you later, Dad. After they left, I finished dressing, my mind churning with this new information. Hazel had been investigating the Lamberts for years without my knowledge. What else had she discovered? And more importantly, how would it affect my own plans? The brunch was set up on the grand lawn, white tents erected against the threat of rain. Tables groaned with extravagant displays of food, and champagne flowed freely despite the early hour. The Lambert way, excess as a birthright. I spotted Natalie deep in conversation with Vivian, both of them repeatedly glancing toward Harvey, who sat like a king holding court at the head table. Dominic hovered nearby, playing the dutiful son-in-law with practiced charm. Their nervousness was obvious. Ready? Came a voice beside me. I turned to find Teddy, remarkably sober and clear-eyed. Look at them. Natalie keeps touching her pearls. She always does that when she's worried. He was right. It was a tell ID notice during our marriage, but had forgotten until now. What do they have to be nervous about? I asked. Harvey's about to announce a generous commission for me and distribute new trust funds to the family. Teddy's smile was thin. Is that what he told you? Interesting. He nodded toward the side of the tent where a group of unfamiliar men in suits stood talking quietly. See those guys? Lawyers. Not the regular Lambert legal team, either. New faces. Before he could elaborate, Harvey tapped his glass for attention and the gathered family members fell silent. Thank you all for coming, Harvey began, his voice weaker than yesterday but still commanding. As you know, family has always been my highest priority. The Lambert legacy is something I've protected and nurtured through good times and bad. Murmurs of agreement rippled through the crowd. Today, Harvey continued, I want to announce some changes that will secure that legacy for generations to come. He gestured to the suited men Teddy had pointed out. I've brought in independent counsel to oversee the restructuring of the Lambert trusts and foundation. I noticed Dominic shift uncomfortably, whispering something to Natalie that made her frown. The first announcement, Harvey said, looking directly at me, is that Sullivan Architecture has been commissioned to design the new Lambert Foundation headquarters. Liam, would you join me up here? A smattering of confused applause followed as I made my way to the front. Harvey shook my hand for the cameras that someone had strategically positioned. Liam Sullivan is not just a brilliant architect, Harvey announced. He is the father of my granddaughter, Hazel, and despite past differences, he remains part of the extended Lambert family. This commission symbolizes reconciliation and looking toward the future. As we posed for photos, Harvey muttered under his breath, Smile, Sullivan. This is for Hazel's sake. I did smile, but not for the reasons he thought. The second announcement, Harvey continued once I returned to my seat, concerns the restructuring of the family trusts. After much reflection, I've decided that transparency must be the cornerstone of our family's future. At this, Vivian's champagne glass actually slipped from her hand, shattering on the stone patio. Dominic had gone pale. To that end, Harvey pressed on, All financial transactions of the Lambert Foundation for the past 10 years will be independently audited, with results made available to all family members. The silence that followed was deafening. Then Dominic stepped forward. "Harvey," he said smoothly, "perhaps this is not the appropriate venue for such technical discussions. The family reunion should be about celebration, not business." Harvey's gaze hardened. "It's precisely the right venue, Dominic, because it affects everyone here." He turned back to the assembled family. "For too long, certain irregularities have been overlooked. That ends today." Natalie hurried to her father's side. "Dad, you re not well. We should continue this discussion when you re-feeling stronger." Harvey waved her off. "I am dying, Natalie, not senile. The lawyers have their instructions. The audit begins tomorrow." The tension under the tent was now thick enough to cut. I caught Teddy's eye across the crowd. He raised his water glass in a silent toast, his expression vindicated. "Finally," Harvey said, his voice growing weaker, "I want to speak directly to my granddaughter Hazel." All eyes turned to Hazel, who stood quietly beside Riley near the back. "Hazel, come here, child." She walked forward with graceful confidence, every inch her mother's daughter in appearance, but with a steadiness that was all her own, or perhaps all mine. "Hazel Lambert Sullivan," Harvey said fondly, taking her hand. "You've shown wisdom beyond your years. The special provision in your trust fund reflects my confidence in you and my desire to right certain wrongs of the past." The implication hung in the air. Whatever Harvey was giving Hazel was significant enough to warrant this public declaration. "Thank you, grandfather," Hazel said clearly. "The paperwork is prepared," Harvey continued. "We'll sign everything after brunch. Now let's enjoy this lovely meal." But the festive mood was irreparably damaged. Family members broke into tense huddles, whispering urgently. Dominic pulled Natalie aside, his expression thunderous. Vivian seemed on the verge of tears. I made my way through the crowd until I reached Hazel. "What was that about?" I asked quietly. "Not here," she murmured. "Meet me at the boathouse in 20 minutes. Everything will make sense then." Before I could respond, Dominic approached us, his handsome face set in lines of concern. "Hazel, your grandfather needs to rest," he said. "The excitement has tired him. Perhaps you could help your grandmother get him back to the house." It was a transparent attempt to separate us, but Hazel nodded. "Of course, Uncle Dominic." She gave me a meaningful look before walking away. Left alone with Dominic, I waited for whatever he had clearly come to say. "Sullivan," he began, dropping all pretense of friendliness. "What did you say to Harvey?" "Nothing he did not already know," I replied calmly. Dominic stepped closer, lowering his voice. "Listen to me carefully. Whatever game you replaying, it's dangerous. Not just for you, but for Hazel." "Is that a threat?" "It's a reality check. Harvey's mind is failing. These sudden changes, this talk of audits and transparency, it's the cancer affecting his judgment. Or maybe it's a dying man's attempt to clear his conscience," I suggested. Dominic's laugh was harsh. "Harvey Lambert does not have a conscience. You should know that better than anyone." He glanced around before continuing. 5 years ago, you walked away with your life and at least partial custody of your daughter. That was generous, considering the circumstances." "Generous," I echoed. "You and the Lamberts systematically destroyed my reputation, nearly ruined my career, and took my family. There was nothing generous about it." "You were asking dangerous questions," Dominic hissed, "getting too close to things that did not concern you. The separation was for your own good. And the fact that you ended up with my wife and access to the Lambert fortune was just a coincidental bonus." A muscle ticked in Dominic's jaw. "You know nothing, Sullivan." "I know about the money laundering through veiled development," I said quietly. "I know about the accident in the library the night before Natalie left me. And soon I'll know everything else." The color drained from his face. "You re-bluffing." "Am I?" "Wait for the audit and find out." I smiled coldly. "Now, if you'll excuse me, I have a meeting to keep." I left him standing there, visibly shaken. As I walked away from the tent toward the boathouse, the first raindrops began to fall, fat and heavy, like the universe itself was finally ready to weep for justice delayed. The rain intensified as I made my way to the boathouse, soaking through my suit jacket. By the time I reached the old structure, water was coursing down my face, my expensive shoes squelching in the mud. I did not care. After 5 years of calculated patience, I was finally about to get answers. I pushed open the weathered door to find not just Hazel waiting for me, but an unexpected gathering. Teddy, Riley, and to my surprise, Mrs. Perry. Dad, Hazel said, rising from her seat on an old bench. I am sorry for all the secrecy, but it was necessary. Necessary for what? I asked, wiping rain from my face. For justice, Riley said simply. Teddy stepped forward, more serious than I'd ever seen him. Sullivan, there's something you need to see before we explain everything. He handed me a sealed envelope. This was hidden in Harvey's private safe. I liberated it last night after our conversation. Inside was a single photograph, faded and creased from being handled. It showed Natalie, Dominic, and Harvey standing over what appeared to be a body on the library floor. My body. I was unconscious, blood pooling around my head. What the hell is this? I demanded, though I was beginning to understand. The night before your separation, Mrs. Perry said quietly. The accident in the library. Hazel took a deep breath. They drugged you, Dad. Put something in your drink during dinner. Then they staged it to look like you'd gotten drunk and fallen, hitting your head on the fireplace mantel. But I do not remember any of this, I said, still staring at the photograph. That was by design, Teddy explained. The drug they used, it was something Harvey had access to through his pharmaceutical investments. Causes temporary amnesia along with the sedative effect. Why? I asked, the question directed at no one in particular. Why go to such lengths? Because you discovered something, Riley said. Something about the Lambert Foundation's finances that could have sent Uncle Harvey to prison. I thought back to that final week of my marriage. I had been working late, reviewing some architectural plans for a Lambert Foundation project. Natalie had been distant, making excuses to avoid spending time together, and I had stumbled across some discrepancies in the project budgets. The Kingston development, I said slowly as the memories resurfaced. Funds were being diverted, millions of dollars. Teddy nodded grimly, into a series of offshore accounts. It was not just money laundering, it was massive tax fraud, bribery of government officials, even funding some questionable ventures in countries with poor human rights records. But how would staging an accident help them? I asked. It was not just the accident, Hazel explained. While you were unconscious, they planted things in your home office. Evidence suggesting you were unstable, obsessed with conspiracy theories about the Lambert family. So when Natalie suddenly filed for separation the next day, I began. Everyone believed her story that you'd become mentally unstable, Mrs. Perry finished. Especially after you could not remember the accident and denied it had happened. The pieces were falling into place now. The sudden separation, the whispers about my mental health, the character assassination that had followed. And then they used that same narrative to push me out of major architectural projects, I said, the old anger rising fresh, suggesting I was unreliable, possibly dangerous to work with. Exactly, Teddy confirmed. It was the perfect plan. Discredit you professionally and personally so that even if you did start making accusations about financial irregularities, no one would believe you. I turned to Hazel, heart warring with pride. How long have you known about this? I started putting it together 3 years ago, she admitted. I found the photo hidden in Mom's desk when I was looking for some school papers. At first, I did not understand what I was seeing, but then I started noticing things. The way everyone got quiet when your name came up. How grandfather would change the subject if I asked about the separation. So you began investigating, I said, recognizing in her the same methodical determination I'd used in my own quest for answers. She nodded. Riley helped. And then we brought in Uncle Teddy because he had access to financial records. And Mrs. Perry? I asked. She came to me, Hazel explained. After overhearing Dominic and Mom arguing about what really happened that night, she had suspicions from the beginning. "I should have spoken up sooner, Mrs. Perry said regretfully. "But I was afraid. My husband was ill and the Lamberts provide our health insurance." I nodded, understanding the impossible position she'd been in. "So Harvey's announcement today about the audit and transparency was our doing," Teddy finished with a hint of pride. Hazel squeezed my hand, her eyes shining with determination. "We did it for you, Dad. For all of us. Now it's your turn. What happens next?" We've been feeding him information gradually over the past 6 months, making him believe Dominic has been secretly working against the family interests, which is not far from the truth, Riley added. "Uncle Dominic has been siphoning funds from the foundation for years, with or without grandfather's knowledge." "And Natalie?" I asked, dreading the answer. "How much did she know?" Hazel's expression softened with sympathy. "Everything, Dad. She was part of it from the beginning. The relationship with Dominic started almost a year before the separation. The plan to discredit you was her idea. The confirmation hit me like a physical blow, even though I'd suspected as much. I'd spent 5 years rebuilding my life, planning my return to the Lambert fold, all to expose the truth about that night and the financial crimes behind it. But I'd always held a sliver of hope that Natalie had been manipulated, that she'd regretted her role in what happened. "I am sorry, Dad," Hazel said, watching my face carefully. "I know you loved her once." I straightened, pushing the personal pain aside. "So what's the plan now?" "Harvey makes his changes to the trusts, the audit exposes the financial crimes, and then what?" Teddy and Riley exchanged glances. "That depends on you," Teddy said finally. "The audit will inevitably lead to criminal charges against Dominic, possibly Natalie as well. Harvey might escape legal consequences given his health, but his reputation will be destroyed." "And the Lambert fortune?" I asked. "Will be significantly diminished after fines and legal fees," Riley explained. "Plus, any assets tied to illegal activities will be seized." I turned to Hazel. "And the special provision Harvey mentioned for you?" She hesitated before answering. "He's giving me controlling interest in the legitimate holdings of the Lambert portfolio. Real estate mainly, including this estate." I blinked in surprise. "Why would he do that?" "Guilt," Teddy suggested. "Or maybe he finally recognized which family member has actual integrity. Or maybe," Riley added softly, "he knows what we've been doing, and this is his way of making amends without admitting fault." Thunder cracked overhead and rain drummed harder on the boathouse roof. Through the windows I could see the main house lit up against the darkening sky, the party continuing despite the weather. "There's more," Hazel said, her voice suddenly hesitant. "Dad, remember how you always said coincidences make you suspicious?" I nodded, a chill running down my spine that had nothing to do with my rain-soaked clothes. "The night before Mom left you, when they staged the accident, there was another accident here at the estate. A real one." She looked at Teddy for support. "My father," Teddy continued quietly. "Uncle Howard. Harvey's younger brother and my father. He supposedly fell down the stairs after having too much to drink. Died instantly." "I remember," I said slowly. "It happened the same weekend, but I was already in the hospital by then, being treated for my accident." "It was not an accident, Mrs. Perry said flatly. "I overheard Mr. Harvey and Mr. Dominic talking about it years later. Mr. Howard had discovered the financial irregularities too. He confronted his brother, threatened to go public. The implications were staggering." "Are you saying Harvey had his own brother killed?" "Not directly," Teddy said, his voice tight with old grief. "But he created the situation that led to it. And Dominic. Dominic was there that night. He admitted it to Natalie during an argument I overheard last year." I looked at each of them in turn, these unexpected allies in my quest for justice. "What do you want from me?" "Your help," Hazel said simply. "We've done the groundwork, gathered the evidence. But we need someone with nothing left to lose to take it to the authorities." She gave me a sad smile. "And you're the only person the Lamberts have already destroyed once. They say not hurt you again." Little did she know that I'd spent the past 5 years preparing for exactly this moment. My own investigation had uncovered much of what they were telling me. But hearing it confirmed, having the photograph as evidence, this was better than I could have hoped for. "I need time to think," I said finally. Hazel nodded. "The trust signing is scheduled for 4 o'clock. We have until then to decide how to proceed." As if on cue, Riley's phone buzzed. She checked it, her expression turning grim. "It's Mom. They re-looking for all of us. Apparently Harvey's condition has worsened. They recalling a doctor." "Go," I told them. "It would look suspicious if you all missing. I'll stay here and think." One by one, they filed out into the rain. Hazel lingered behind. "Dad," she said quietly, "whatever you decide, I want you to know I am proud of you. The way you rebuilt your life after what they did to you." She swallowed hard. It was not just about finding evidence. I needed to know what kind of man my father really is. After she left, I sat alone in the dim boathouse, the photograph heavy in my hand. 5 years of calculated moves, of rebuilding my reputation brick by brick while simultaneously gathering evidence against the Lamberts. 5 years of compartmentalizing my rage so I could be the father Hazel needed while plotting the destruction of her maternal family. And now it turned out she'd been doing the same thing, building her own case against them, seeking her own form of justice for what they'd done to me. Like father, like daughter. I pulled out my phone and dialed a number I'd memorized but never used. "Agent Harlow," a crisp female voice answered. "Who am I speaking with?" "This is Liam Sullivan," I said. "We have a mutual friend in Christopher Wagner at the SEC. Mr. Sullivan," she acknowledged, her tone shifting to alert interest. "Chris mentioned you might call someday. He said you were building a case." "The case is built," I replied. "And I am ready to present it." "How quickly can you get to the Lambert estate?" Chapter 6, The Confrontation. The rain had eased to a steady drizzle by the time I made my way back to the main house. The atmosphere inside was tense, the usual Lambert grandeur muted by the somber mood. Harvey was seated in a wingback chair by the fireplace, his face pale but his eyes sharp. Natalie and Dominic stood nearby, their expressions a mix of concern and anxiety. Vivian paced the room, wringing her hands. "There you are, Liam," Natalie said, her voice tight. "We've been looking for you." "Harvey's not well." "I heard," I replied, approaching the old man. "How are you feeling, Harvey?" He waved a dismissive hand. "Like a man on borrowed time. But I've made my peace with that. Today was a good day. A day of reckoning and redemption." Dominic's eyes narrowed, but he said nothing. Natalie bit her lip, her gaze flickering between us. "Where's Hazel?" I asked, turning to Vivian. "She's upstairs with the doctor," Vivian replied. "He's running some tests. She's been so worried about her grandfather." I nodded, taking a seat across from Harvey. "I can understand that. Family is important, after all." Harvey's lips curled into a faint smile. "Indeed it is. And today I've ensured that my family will be taken care of no matter what happens to me." The door opened and Hazel entered, her face composed but her eyes troubled. She walked straight to Harvey, taking his hand. "Grandfather," she said softly, "I am glad you're feeling better." He patted her hand. "I am glad you're here, my dear. I have something for you." He gestured to a document on the table beside him. "The special provision I mentioned earlier. It's all yours now. The real estate, the investments, everything legitimate. It's yours to manage as you see fit." Hazel's eyes widened in surprise, but she took the document without hesitation. "Thank you, grandfather. I will not let you down." Harvey's gaze shifted to me. "And Liam, I trust you'll help her. You've proven yourself to be a man of integrity, despite what happened in the past." I met his gaze steadily. "I'll do whatever it takes to protect Hazel and ensure justice is served." The room went silent, the weight of my words hanging in the air. Dominic's face darkened, and Natalie's grip on her champagne flute tightened. "Justice?" Dominic sneered. "What do you know about justice, Sullivan?" "I know enough," I replied calmly. "I know about the financial crimes, the cover-ups, the accidents that were not accidents. I know about the photograph." The color drained from Natalie's face. Dominic's eyes widened in shock. "What photograph?" he demanded. "You know the one," I said, pulling out the envelope and handing it to Harvey. "The one that proves you and Natalie staged an accident to discredit me. The one that shows you standing over my unconscious body." Harvey took the envelope, his hands trembling slightly as he opened it. He stared at the photograph for a long moment, his expression unreadable. "Where did you get this?" he asked finally, his voice barely above a whisper. "It does not matter where I got it," I replied. "What matters is what we do with it now." The room was silent, the tension palpable. Harvey looked up, his eyes meeting mine. "You've done your research, Liam," he said softly. "You know the truth, and now so does everyone else." He turned to Natalie and Dominic, his voice steady and firm. "You two have some explaining to do, and I, for one, am ready to listen." By 3 o'clock, the storm had intensified, lightning splitting the sky above the Lambert estate. as if nature itself was participating in the drama unfolding below. Inside the main house, family members had gathered in the great room, expressions somber. Harvey had indeed taken a turn for the worse, though the doctor assured everyone it was just exhaustion, not the imminent end. I stood at the periphery, watching the family dynamics with newfound clarity. Dominic hovered near Harvey's chair, solicitous and concerned, the perfect son-in-law. Natalie sat rigid beside her father, her hand occasionally straying to the pearls at her throat. Vivian fluttered about, ordering staff to bring tea and blankets, her brittle energy masking genuine distress. Hazel caught my eye from across the room and gave an almost imperceptible nod, our signal that everything was proceeding as planned. "Liam," Harvey called weakly, beckoning me closer. "Have you considered my offer?" I approached his chair, aware of Dominic tensing beside him. "I have, Harvey. It's very generous. But," he prompted, always sharp enough to hear the unspoken reservation. "But I'd like to discuss some specifics before I accept. Perhaps after you've rested." Harvey's eyes narrowed slightly. "No time like the present, Sullivan. The lawyers are still here. We can sign all the paperwork at once, your commission and the trust revisions." Before I could respond, the great room doors opened and Preston stumbled in, drenched and agitated. "There are federal agents at the gate," he announced to the stunned room. "FBI, SEC, I do not know who else. They saying they have a warrant." The reaction was immediate. Vivian gasped. Natalie went pale. Dominic's hand tightened visibly on the back of Harvey's chair. Harvey himself remained remarkably composed. "Let them in," he said after a moment. "Preston, tell security to grant them access." "Dad," Natalie protested, "you need to rest. We can handle whatever this is." Harvey's gaze hardened. "No, Natalie. I believe we've had enough of handling things behind closed doors." He turned to me, his expression unreadable. "This is your doing, is not it, Sullivan?" The room fell silent, all eyes turning to me. "Not entirely," I admitted, "but I've contributed." Dominic stepped forward, his handsome face contorted with rage. "You ungrateful fool. After everything Harvey has offered you, after everything you took from me." I corrected him calmly. "There's a difference." "What is he talking about?" Vivian demanded, looking between her husband and daughter. Harvey sighed heavily. "It seems our past has finally caught up with us, my dear." The sound of multiple vehicles pulling up outside drew everyone's attention. Through the windows, we could see several black SUVs, their headlights cutting through the rain and darkness. "Dad," Hazel said, moving to stand beside me, her voice steady, "I think you should explain to everyone what is happening." All eyes swiveled to her, surprise evident on most faces. The room tensed, perched on the edge of revelation as thunder rumbled overhead. Hazel, the quiet observer, the obedient granddaughter, suddenly taking center stage. "Hazel, honey," Natalie began in a placating tone. "This is complicated adult business. Why do not you—" "No, Mom," Hazel interrupted firmly. "This involves me too. It has from the beginning." I placed a supportive hand on my daughter's shoulder, immensely proud of her courage. "Hazel discovered the truth about what happened the night before you left me, Natalie," I said. "The staged accident, the drugging, all of it." Gasps and murmurs rippled through the assembled family members. "That's ridiculous," Natalie said, but her voice lacked conviction. "You fell, Liam. You were drinking." "We have the photograph," I cut in. "The one Harvey took as insurance. The three of you standing over my unconscious body." The color drained from Natalie's face. Dominic stepped forward, clearly calculating his next move. "Whatever you think you know, whatever evidence you think you have is currently being presented to federal agents," I finished for him. "Along with evidence of financial crimes spanning nearly a decade," Teddy added, stepping forward to stand beside Hazel and me. "Money laundering, tax evasion, bribery of government officials, and murder." This revelation sent a shock wave through the room. Even some of the Lambert relatives who had been looking at us with suspicion now turned questioning gazes toward Harvey. Howard's death was an accident, Harvey insisted, though his voice had weakened further. A tragic accident. Was my accident also tragic, Harvey? I asked quietly. Or was it conveniently timed to discredit me before I could expose what I'd found? The sound of the front door opening and firm footsteps in the hall silenced further discussion. Agent Harlow entered, flanked by several other agents. Her expression was professionally neutral despite the dramatic scene she'd walked into. "Harvey Lambert?" she asked, though she clearly knew who he was. Harvey straightened in his chair, summoning the dignity that had served him well through decades of business dealings. "I am Harvey Lambert. How can I help you, Agent?" "Harlow, FBI," she replied, producing a document. "This is a warrant to search these premises and seize financial records related to the Lambert Foundation and Vale Development Corporation." She turned slightly. "We also have a warrant for the arrest of Dominic Vale Lambert on charges of financial fraud, money laundering, and conspiracy." Dominic's face contorted with fury. "This is absurd. You see, not possibly. We have extensive evidence, Mr. Vale Lambert," Agent Harlow said calmly, "including testimony from multiple witnesses and detailed financial records going back 10 years. As agents moved to take Dominic into custody, Natalie finally broke her frozen stance, rushing to her father. "Dad, do something. Call the lawyers." Harvey looked suddenly every day of his 73 years, the fight draining from him as he watched his empire begin to crumble. "The lawyers see not help with this, Natalie. Mrs. Vale Lambert," Agent Harlow continued, turning to Natalie. "We'll need you to come with us as well for questioning regarding your involvement in these matters." Natalie looked genuinely shocked. "I am not involved in Dominic's business dealings." "Perhaps not directly," I interjected, unable to keep the bitterness from my voice. "But you were very involved in discrediting me when I discovered those dealings. The staged accident, the drugging, the character assassination that followed, all to protect the family fortune." Tears welled in Natalie's eyes. "Liam, you do not understand. It was not like that. I was trying to protect Hazel's inheritance, her future. By taking her away from me and poisoning the family against me," Hazel finished coldly. "Knowing a judge would believe the Lambert family over a supposedly unstable architect." The raw pain in my daughter's voice cut through me. All these years, I'd been focused on the professional damage, the financial setbacks, the personal humiliation. I had not fully considered how deeply the separation had wounded Hazel herself. "I think we've heard enough," Agent Harlow said professionally. "We'll sort out the details downtown." She nodded to her agents, who began leading Dominic and Natalie toward the door. Dominic, always calculating, turned to Harvey as he was being escorted out. "Harvey, you need to fix this. Use your connections, call in favors." But Harvey did not respond. He was looking at me with an expression I could not quite decipher. Part resignation, part grudging respect. "You orchestrated this well, Sullivan," he said quietly as the agents led Dominic and Natalie away. 5 years in the making, I suppose. 4 years, 11 months, and 17 days. I corrected him. "But who's counting?" A ghost of a smile flickered across his lips. "Always detail-oriented. That's what makes you a good architect. And it seems my granddaughter inherited that trait." "Mr. Lambert," Agent Harlow interrupted. "We'll need to ask you some questions as well." Harvey nodded wearily. "I assumed as much, though I doubt I'll live long enough to see the inside of a courtroom." "Dad?" Vivian protested weakly, but Harvey waved her off. "It's time for truth, Vivian. God knows we've had precious little of that in this family." He turned back to me. "What happens now, Sullivan? You've won. The Lambert name will be dragged through the mud. The fortune diminished, my daughter and son-in-law facing criminal charges. Is that enough revenge for you?" I considered the question carefully. "It's not about revenge, Harvey. It's about justice. For me, for Howard Lambert, for everyone your family has hurt over the years. And for Hazel," Harvey added, looking at his granddaughter with genuine affection. You did this for her too, did not you? To show her that the truth matters, that actions have consequences, even for people like us. Especially for people like you, I corrected. As the agents helped Harvey to his feet, preparing to escort him for questioning, he paused before me. The commission offer was genuine, by the way. I really did want you to design the new foundation headquarters. Despite everything, you re the best architect I know. I'll pass, I said simply. I have other projects to focus on. Fair enough. He turned to Hazel. The trust provisions stand, regardless of what happens today. I've made sure of it. Use it wisely, my dear. And with that, Harvey Lambert was led away. The once mighty patriarch reduced to an old man in the rain. His carefully constructed empire collapsing around him. The great room emptied quickly after that, shell-shocked family members dispersing to process what had happened. Even Vivian left, escorted by concerned relatives to her private quarters. Hazel, Teddy, Riley, and I remained, standing in silence as the storm continued to rage outside. Is it over? Riley asked finally. I looked at my daughter, seeing the complex emotions playing across her face. Relief, sadness, uncertainty about the future. The worst part is, I answered, the legal proceedings will take time. The media coverage will be extensive. The Lambert name is finished, Teddy said, not sounding particularly upset about it. Even if some of the legitimate assets survive, the reputation is destroyed. Hazel moved to the window, watching the agents loading her mother and Dominic into separate vehicles. Mom will go to prison, will not she? Probably, I admitted, though likely for less time than Dominic. Her involvement in the financial crimes seems peripheral. But she knew about Uncle Howard, Teddy pointed out. About your drugging and the staged accident. That makes her an accessory. Hazel nodded slowly. I know. I never thought it would end like this. I joined her at the window, placing a gentle hand on her shoulder. How did you think it would end, sweetheart? She turned to me, her eyes welling with tears she'd been holding back. I thought maybe once they knew we had the evidence they'd deconfess, make amends somehow. That Mom would. I do not know, be sorry. My heart ached for her. Despite everything she discovered, despite her role in bringing the truth to light, she was still a daughter who had hoped for redemption from her mother. I am sorry it did not work out that way, I said softly. Hazel straightened her shoulders, wiping away a stray tear. Do not be. They made their choices, all of them, and now they have to live with the consequences. She looked at me with sudden intensity. Just like you lived with the consequences of what they did to you, but you rebuilt. You survived. You did not let them break you. Neither did you, I said proudly. You re-stronger than all of them combined. As the last of the federal vehicles pulled away, Teddy raised an imaginary glass. To justice delayed, but not denied. To truth, Riley added. To rebuilding, I said, looking at my daughter. Hazel nodded, a small smile finally breaking through her tears. To what comes next? Outside, the storm began to subside. The rain gentled from torrent to shower. The first hints of clearing sky appeared on the horizon, a fitting metaphor for the day's events. The Lambert legacy of secrets and manipulation was ending. What would rise in its place remained to be seen. The weeks following what the press dubbed the Lambert collapse passed in a blur of legal proceedings, media coverage, and profound personal reckonings. The family reunion that had begun as a carefully orchestrated trap had spiraled into the complete implosion of one of the city's most prominent dynasties. I stood in my downtown apartment, staring at the front page of the business section. Lambert Foundation executives indicted on 32 counts of financial fraud. The accompanying photo showed Dominic being led into the courthouse, his once confident expression replaced by haggard defeat. Natalie had managed to secure bail, claiming limited knowledge of the financial crimes. But the evidence against her involvement in my accident and the subsequent character assassination was damning. Her lawyer was frantically negotiating a plea deal, hoping to minimize her prison time. Harvey, true to his prediction, had escaped courtroom justice. His cancer had accelerated rapidly under the stress, confining him to hospice care at the estate. Doctors gave him weeks, not months. A knock at my door pulled me from these thoughts. I opened it to find Hazel, dressed in simple jeans and a sweater rather than the designer clothes Natalie had always insisted upon. "Hey, Dad," she said, stepping inside and eyeing the newspaper. "More bad press." "Just the usual," I replied, folding the paper away. "How are you holding up?" She shrugged, dropping onto my couch with a teenage casualness that belied the adult burdens she'd been carrying. "Okay, I guess. Weird at school. Everyone knows, of course. Some people avoid me like financial crime is contagious. Others suddenly want to be my friend, as if I am some fascinating criminal-adjacent celebrity. And your real friends? They've been great." She managed a small smile. "Riley's been staying with me at the estate. Having another teenager around helps." Since the arrests, Hazel had been living at the Lambert estate under the nominal guardianship of Vivian, though in reality, she was essentially on her own. The trust Harvey had established for her granted her significant independence, including the right to determine her own living arrangements once she turned 18 in a few months. "Have you visited your mother?" I asked carefully. Hazel's expression closed. "Once. It was difficult. She keeps saying she did everything for me. Like that makes it better somehow." I sat beside her, choosing my words carefully. People tell themselves whatever they need to justify their actions. Your mother convinced herself she was protecting your future by destroying yours. Hazel's voice hardened. "By lying to me for years about who you really were." I squeezed her hand. "What matters is that you found the truth for yourself. You did not let anyone else define who I was or who you are." "I've been thinking about that," she said, suddenly serious. "About who I am or who I want to be. And I do not want to be a Lambert anymore." She looked up, determination in her eyes. "After I turn 18, I want to legally change my name to just Sullivan." The request stunned me. Despite everything, I had not expected her to want to completely sever ties with her maternal lineage. "That's a big decision, Hazel. Are you sure?" "I've never been more sure of anything," she said firmly. "The Lambert name is toxic now anyway, but it's more than that. I'm your daughter, Dad. You the parent who taught me integrity, who showed me that you can rebuild after everything falls apart." She took a deep breath. "I do not want any connection to people who could do what they did to you." Pride and sorrow mingled in my chest. Pride in the strong, principled young woman my daughter had become. Sorrow that her journey to this point had been so painful. "If that's what you want, I'll support you," I promised. "But do not rush into it. Give yourself time to process everything." She nodded, then switched topics with teenage abruptness. "Grandfather's asking to see you." I stiffened. "Harvey?" "What?" She hesitated. "He would not say exactly. Just that he needs to speak with you before." She left the sentence unfinished. "I have no interest in giving Harvey Lambert deathbed absolution," I said flatly. "I do not think that's what he wants," Hazel replied. "He specifically said it was about Uncle Howard, and about the night of your accident." That caught my attention. Despite all the evidence we uncovered, the exact details of Howard Lambert's death remained murky. If Harvey was finally willing to clarify his role in his brother's demise, it could provide Teddy and Riley with the closure they desperately needed. "When does he want to see me?" "Today, if possible. The doctors say he's fading fast." I sighed, weighing my options. Part of me, the part that had nurtured revenge for nearly 5 years, wanted to deny Harvey this final request. Let him die with his secrets intact, without the relief of confession. But another part, the part that had raised Hazel to value truth above all else, knew I would be a hypocrite to refuse. "I'll go this afternoon," I decided. Hazel's relief was visible. "Thank you. I know it's asking a lot." "Not for you," I assured her. "Never for you." Later that day, I found myself driving up the now familiar winding road to the Lambert estate. The property had lost its intimidating grandeur in recent weeks, becoming instead a symbol of collapse. Its manicured grounds were neglected as staff members departed the sinking ship. Mrs. Perry met me at the door, her expression solemn. Thank you for coming, Mr. Sullivan. He*s in the master suite upstairs. The nurse is with him, but she'll step out when you arrive. The house felt cavernous and empty as I climbed the grand staircase. Vivian was reportedly staying with her sister in Connecticut, unable to face the daily reminders of her family's disgrace. Most of the household staff had been let go, unable to be paid as the family assets were frozen pending investigation. I knocked softly on the half-open door of the master suite. Come in, called the weak voice, barely recognizable as Harvey Lambert's. The man who had once dominated every room he entered now seemed shrunken against the pillows of his massive bed. Tubes connected him to various medical equipment, and his skin had the gray pallor of approaching death. The nurse, a practical-looking woman in her 50s, nodded to me. 15 minutes, no more. He needs to rest. After she left, I approached the bed but remained standing, unwilling to create even the illusion of intimacy with this man. Sullivan, Harvey acknowledged, his voice thin but still carrying that note of command. You came. Hazel said you had something to tell me about Howard and the night of my accident, I replied without preamble. I am here to listen, not to forgive. Harvey managed a weak smile. Direct as always. It's a quality I should have appreciated more. He gestured feebly to a chair. Sit, please. What I have to say will take a few minutes, and I'd rather not strain to look up at you. Reluctantly, I took the seat, maintaining a careful distance from the bed. Howard discovered the money laundering operation in 2017, Harvey began without preamble. He confronted me privately at first, urged me to stop, to make amends, to come clean. A rattling cough interrupted him. I refused, of course. Too much at stake. Too many powerful people involved. It was not just the Lambert fortune at risk, but our connections, our standing, our very identity as a family. So you had him killed, I supplied bluntly. Harvey's eyes closed briefly. Not intentionally. That night, he threatened to go public the next morning. We argued at the top of the stairs. Dominic was there, trying to mediate. A bitter laugh escaped him. Mediate while secretly being the architect of half the schemes Howard was threatening to expose. What happened? I pushed him, Harvey admitted, his voice dropping to a whisper. Not to kill him, just in anger. But he fell. The angle was wrong. His neck. Harvey swallowed hard. The sound is still with me. That crack. I remained silent, letting the confession hang in the air between us. Dominic took control immediately, Harvey continued. Said we needed to make it look like an accident. Suggested we stage it as a drunken fall. Howard did like his scotch. So it was plausible. He looked at me directly now. What I did not know then was that Dominic had already been planning how to deal with you. Me, I echoed. You'd been reviewing the Kingston development budgets. Asking questions. Getting too close to figuring out what we were doing. Harvey's breathing had become more labored. After Howard, Dominic was paranoid about another threat. But he did not want another accident so soon. Too suspicious. So instead, they drugged you and staged a different kind of accident. I see, I said, the pieces finally coming together completely. To discredit me rather than eliminate me. Harvey nodded weakly. It was Natalie's idea, actually. She knew about the Kingston discrepancies. Knew you were close to figuring it out. She and Dominic had been, he hesitated. Having an affair, I finished for him. I know. More than that. Partners. She brought him into the family business. Pushed for him to have increasing control over foundation matters. Harvey's face twisted with something like regret. I let it happen. Thought Dominic had the killer instinct the Lambert business needed in the next generation. Did not realize he'd turn it against the family itself eventually? So Natalie suggested drugging me to create a plausible reason for a sudden separation, I prompted, wanting to hear the full confession. Yes. The plan was to slip something into your drink at dinner. Wait for you to become disoriented. Then stage a fall in the library. Photograph it as evidence of your instability. Then Natalie would express concern about your mental health. File for separation, citing your erratic behavior. He coughed again, longer this time. The character assassination afterward was improvised. You were more resilient than they expected. Fighting for custody, questioning the separation. They needed to discredit you more thoroughly. And you went along with all of it, I said, not bothering to hide my contempt. I did, Harvey admitted. I convinced myself it was necessary. Another unpleasant business decision. And you were, I prompted. Not a Lambert, he finished. An outsider threatening the family. It was nothing personal. I could not help but laugh at that. You destroyed my life. Took my daughter, nearly ruined my career. And it was nothing personal. Business. Business, Harvey insisted weakly. Always business. And Howard? I asked. Was that business too? Pain flashed across Harvey's face. That was a mistake. My greatest regret. Does Teddy know the full truth about his father's death? Harvey shook his head slightly. No one knows except Dominic, Natalie, and now you. His breathing grew more labored. That's why I wanted to see you. To ask what? For forgiveness, he whispered. I stood, unable to remain seated calmly any longer. After everything you've done. No, Harvey whispered. To ask you to tell Teddy the truth. He deserves to know what happened to his father. He paused, gathering strength. And to give you this. From beneath his pillow, he withdrew a small USB drive. What is that? I asked. Insurance, Harvey replied. Every transaction, every illegal deal, every bribe and threat. I documented it all. Protected myself in case Dominic or anyone else ever turned on me. A grim smile touched his lips. Old habits. I took the drive cautiously. Why give this to me? Because you're the only one who might use it justly, Harvey answered, surprising me. Not to profit or to protect, but to ensure the full truth comes out. He coughed again, this time bringing up flecks of blood that the nurse had warned might happen. And because you Hazel's father. She trusts you, respects you, despite everything we did to poison her against you. She found her own way to the truth. I said, pocketing the drive, she's smarter than all of us. Yes, Harvey agreed, a hint of genuine pride in his voice. A true Lambert in that regard. She's planning to change her name, I told him, perhaps cruelly, to Sullivan only. Rather than anger, resigned understanding crossed Harvey's face. Not blame her. The Lambert name is poison now. He closed his eyes briefly. Tell her I am sorry. Not for the money or the estate or any of that, but for letting her grow up in a family where lies were the foundation of everything. The nurse reappeared at the door. Time is up, Mr. Sullivan. He needs rest. I stood to leave, the USB drive heavy in my pocket. Sullivan, Harvey called weakly as I reached the door. I paused, looking back at the dying man. In the end, he said each word clearly and with effort, you won. Remember that. I considered his words. This was not about winning, Harvey. It was about truth. About justice and revenge. He added with the ghost of his old knowing smile, do not deny it. I recognize the satisfaction of a well-executed plan when I see it. I did not confirm or deny his assessment. Goodbye, Harvey. As I walked out of the Lambert mansion for what I hoped would be the last time, I realized Harvey was partly right. There had been satisfaction in watching the family that had destroyed me face the consequences of their actions. The architect in me appreciated the symmetry of it. They had dismantled my life and I had returned the favor. But revenge had not been my primary motivation. Not really. It had been about clearing my name, about showing Hazel the value of perseverance and integrity, about justice for Howard Lambert and everyone else the family had hurt over the years. At least, that's what I told myself as I drove away from the crumbling dynasty, the USB drive containing its final secrets secure in my pocket. 3 months after my final conversation with Harvey Lambert, I stood in the crisp October air beside Hazel watching his workers remove the Lambert name from the facade of what had once been the family's flagship office building downtown. The property had been sold as part of the asset liquidation following the criminal convictions. Strange to see it go, Hazel commented, her breath fogging in the cool morning. That sign's been there my whole life. Change is not always bad, I replied, putting an arm around her shoulders. She leaned into the half-embrace. I know. Sometimes it's necessary. She glanced at me. Did you ever imagine, when you were planning your return to the Lambert fold, that it would end like this? Complete implosion? I considered the question carefully. I expected justice. Consequences for what they did to me and others. But the scope of it? I shook my head. No, I did not anticipate how completely the house of cards would collapse. The fallout had indeed been more extensive than any of us had predicted. Harvey Lambert had died 6 days after our conversation, taking many of his secrets to the grave, though not before signing a detailed confession about Howard's death that provided Teddy with the closure he sought for years. Dominic had received a 20-year sentence for financial crimes, conspiracy, and his role in covering up Howard's death. He was currently serving his time in a medium-security federal prison, his appeals exhausted. Natalie had fared somewhat better legally, accepting a plea deal that resulted in a 7-year sentence, of which she'd likely serve 4 with good behavior. Her tearful courtroom apology had seemed genuine to everyone except perhaps Hazel, who had attended the sentencing but had not visited her mother since. The Lambert Foundation had been dissolved, its legitimate assets sold to pay restitution to victims of the financial schemes. The family fortune, once estimated at over $1 billion, had evaporated under the weight of legal judgments, fines, and asset seizures. Grandfather's provision for me survived, at least, Hazel noted as if following my thoughts. Though it's weird being the only Lambert with any money left. Sullivan, I corrected gently. As of last week, you're officially Hazel Sullivan. She smiled at that, a genuine expression of contentment. Right? Hazel Sullivan, architecture student. Her acceptance to RISD had come through last month, a bright spot amid the continuing fallout from the Lambert collapse. She deferred for a year, wanting to take time to process everything that had happened and to help Riley and Teddy navigate their own changed circumstances. How is Teddy doing? I asked as we turned away from the building, walking toward a nearby coffee shop. Better, I think. Having the truth about his dad helps. And the small inheritance from grandfather's personal estate means he can finally get proper treatment for his addiction issues. She hesitated. He's talking about writing a book. About the family, the corruption, all of it. That could be therapeutic for him, I acknowledged. And the public is certainly still interested in the story. The Lambert scandal, as the media had dubbed it, continued to fascinate the public months after the initial arrests. The legacy left behind was being rewritten, one story, one truth at a time. Books and documentary deals were already in the works, examining how one of the city's most prominent families had maintained a facade of respectability while engaging in criminal enterprises for decades. I had declined all interview requests, preferring to focus on rebuilding my life again and supporting Hazel through the ongoing upheaval. The USB drive Harvey had given me had been turned over to federal prosecutors, ensuring that no aspect of the family's crimes remained hidden. Here's something wild, Hazel said as we settled at a table with our coffees. Mom wrote me a letter from prison. She wants to see me. I kept my expression neutral. How do you feel about that? Hazel traced the rim of her cup thoughtfully. Conflicted. Part of me never wants to see her again. But another part I do not know. She is still my mother. You do not have to decide right away, I reminded her. Or ever if that is what you choose. No one would blame you for cutting ties completely. Would you? She asked suddenly. Blame me, I mean. If I eventually decided to have some kind of relationship with her? The question caught me off guard. No, Hazel, that is your decision, not mine. I would never presume to dictate your relationship with your mother. Even after everything she did to you. I chose my words carefully. I would not forgive what Natalie did. The betrayal, the lies, using our daughter as a pawn in her schemes, those are unforgivable to me. But my feelings do not have to dictate yours. You're allowed to have your own journey with this. Hazel nodded slowly. Thanks for saying that. It helps. She took a sip of her coffee, then smiled. Oh, I almost forgot to tell you. Vivian is selling the estate. This was surprising news. I thought she was determined to hold on to it. No matter what. She was, but reality finally set in. The maintenance costs alone are astronomical, and with most of the family assets frozen or seized. Hazel shrugged. She is moving to a condo in Florida, closer to her sister. How do you feel about the estate being sold? I asked. You spent a lot of time there growing up. Honestly, relieved. That place holds too many secrets, too many lies. She met my gaze directly. I was thinking actually, would it be okay if I moved in with you? Just until college next fall. Warmth spread through my chest. Of course, you do not even have to ask, Hazel. My home is always your home. Her smile was worth everything we'd been through. I was hoping you'd say that. Riley is staying with her mom's family now that they've reconciled, so the estate feels even emptier. As we continued chatting about practical arrangements for her move, my phone buzzed with an incoming call. The screen showed Christopher Wagner, my contact at the SEC who had helped connect me with Agent Harlow. I should take this, I told Hazel, stepping away from the table. Hello, Chris. Liam, he greeted me, his tone upbeat. Just got some news I thought you'd want to hear right away. The judge approved the seizure of Dominic's offshore accounts. The ones in the Caymans that he thought were untraceable. That's good news, I acknowledged. More funds for restitution. It's better than good, Chris continued. In those accounts, we found evidence linking Dominic to 3 other major financial fraud cases we've been investigating for years. Cases involving people even more powerful than the Lamberts. My interest sharpened. What kind of people? Politicians. Foreign dignitaries. A federal judge, Chris lowered his voice. The kind of people who make Harvey Lambert look like a small-time operator. And Dominic had connections to all of them. More than connections. Evidence suggests he was their handler, their fixer, the one who arranged the money laundering, the offshore accounts, everything. Chris sounded excited now. Liam, what you started with the Lambert case may end up being the thread that unravels something much bigger. After finishing the call, I returned to Hazel, my mind racing with this new information. Everything okay? She asked, noting my expression. Yes, I said slowly. Just unexpected developments in the case. She studied me with that perceptive gaze that missed nothing. They found something else, did not they? Something bigger than just the Lambert crimes. I nodded, not bothering to dissemble. Hazel had earned complete honesty. It seems Dominic was involved with some very powerful people. The kind who make your grandfather look minor league. And now they reinvestigating these people too? Yes. Hazel considered this. So it's not really over, is it? What we started? No, I admitted. It appears to be just the beginning. As we left the coffee shop, walking back toward my car under the crisp autumn sky, I found myself contemplating the unexpected scope of what we set in motion. What had begun as a personal quest for justice had expanded into something that might ultimately reshape the city's power structures. Dad, Hazel said after we walked in silence for a while, are you okay with this? With it becoming something bigger than just revenge? I considered her question carefully. I did not start this for revenge, Hazel. Not entirely. I wanted justice, yes, but also truth. Clear boundaries between right and wrong. I looked at my remarkable daughter. I wanted to show you that no one is above consequences, no matter how wealthy or powerful. Mission accomplished, she said with a small smile. And then some. As we reached the car, I spotted a familiar figure waiting nearby, Agent Harlow, her expression professionally composed as always. Mr. Sullivan, she greeted me. M.S. Sullivan, she added, acknowledging Hazel's new legal name with a nod that suggested she kept track of such details. I was hoping to catch you both. Chris Wagner just called. I told her he mentioned new developments with Dominic's offshore accounts. That's part of why I am here, she confirmed. The investigation has expanded significantly. She paused, glancing between Hazel and me before continuing. We've identified at least 7 high-profile individuals connected to Vale Lambert's operations, but we've hit some resistance. Meaning? I prompted. Meaning powerful people are trying to shut down our investigation, she said bluntly. People who do not want certain stones turned over. What does that have to do with us? Hazel asked. We've already given our testimonies, turned over all the evidence. Agent Harlow's gaze was steady. We need someone who understands how these networks operate. Someone who's proven they can unravel complex schemes designed by the wealthy to hide their tracks. She looked directly at me. Mr. Sullivan, the FBI would like to bring you on as a special consultant for this expanded investigation. The request took me completely by surprise. I am an architect, Agent Harlow, not a financial investigator. You're also the man who spent 5 years meticulously building a case that brought down one of the city's most untouchable families, she countered. You have insights we need. I glanced at Hazel, finding her watching me intently. You should do it, Dad, she said quietly. Finish what we started. I turned back to Agent Harlow. I'll need to think about it. This was not what I planned. She nodded, understanding. Of course. But do not think too long. As I said, there's resistance. The window for action may close quickly. She handed me her card. Call me when you decide. After she departed, Hazel and I stood in silence for a moment. What are you thinking? She finally asked. I sighed, the weight of decision heavy on my shoulders. I am thinking that I spent 5 years focused on the Lamberts, on clearing my name, on justice for what they did to me. I was not looking to start a career taking down corrupt, powerful people. But she prompted, hearing the unspoken reservation in my voice. But if what Chris and Agent Harlow are saying is true, there are people even more dangerous than the Lamberts who've been operating with impunity. People who hurt others and never face consequences. Hazel nodded slowly. And you have a chance to change that. As we got into the car, the question hung between us. Was I satisfied with the justice I'd achieved for myself and Howard Lambert? Or was I willing to expand my focus, to use what I'd learned during my quest for personal vindication to help others who had been wronged by the powerful? The architect in me recognized the symmetry of it. I had rebuilt my own life from the ruins the Lamberts had left. Perhaps now I could help rebuild a system that had allowed such corruption to flourish unchecked for too long. Whatever you decide, Hazel said as we pulled away from the curb, I am with you, Dad. In that moment, I knew what my answer would be. Not for revenge anymore, but for something larger. Something that might, in some small way, help make a better world for my daughter to inherit. 1 year later, the courtroom fell silent as the judge entered. I sat in the gallery beside Hazel, both of us dressed formally for the occasion. This was the culmination of a year's work, the sentencing hearing for Senator William Pearson, the highest profile figure to fall in what the media now called the dominant conspiracy. My role as special consultant to the FBI's Financial Crimes Task Force had expanded far beyond what I'd initially imagined. What began as offering insights into Dominic's methods had evolved into a full partnership with Agent Harlow's team. My architectural training proved unexpectedly valuable in mapping the complex structures of corruption we were dismantling. "All rise," called the bailiff as Judge Martinez took her seat. Pearson stood at the defense table, his once commanding presence diminished by months of legal proceedings. Behind him sat his wife and adult children, their expressions a mixture of anger and resignation. As the judge began to speak, I felt Hazel slip her hand into mine, a silent gesture of support. At 19, my daughter had matured into a poised young woman whose experiences had given her wisdom beyond her years. Her first year at RISD had been successful, her talent for design flourishing in an environment that valued creativity over conformity. "Senator Pearson," Judge Martinez began, her voice firm, "you have been found guilty of 27 counts of bribery, money laundering, tax evasion, and conspiracy to obstruct justice. These are not merely crimes against the tax code or administrative regulations. They are betrayals of the public trust." I glanced across the courtroom to where Agent Harlow sat with the prosecution team. She gave me a slight nod of acknowledgement. We both knew how hard-won this moment had been. Pearson was just the latest in a series of powerful figures to face justice as a result of our investigation. 2 federal judges, a state governor, several corporate executives, and a handful of international businessmen had already been convicted or had accepted plea deals. Each case had revealed new connections, new schemes, new abuses of power. "I hereby sentence you to 12 years in federal prison," Judge Martinez concluded, bringing my attention back to the proceedings. "Additionally, you will pay restitution in the amount of $23 million to the victims of your schemes." A murmur ran through the courtroom. The sentence was harsh by the standards of white-collar crime, a clear message that the era of gentle wrist slaps for the wealthy and connected was ending. As we filed out of the courtroom after the proceedings concluded, reporters clustered around the steps, hungry for comments. I guided Hazel through the crowd, declining requests for interviews as we had throughout the past year. "Mr. Sullivan," one persistent reporter broke through the line of federal marshals. "Do you consider today's sentence justice for what the Lamberts did to you?" I paused, struck by how the question framed everything through the lens of personal revenge, as if all that had followed was merely an extension of my quest against one family. "This is not about the Lamberts," I said finally. "Or about me. It's about holding powerful people accountable regardless of their wealth or connections. No one should be above the law." The reporter pressed on. "But you must feel vindicated seeing the system work after what you experienced." Hazel stepped forward. "My father rebuilt his life after what the Lamberts did to him," she said clearly. "And now he is helping rebuild a justice system that works for everyone, not just the privileged few. That's not vindication, it's transformation." Pride swelled in my chest at her words. Even after a year of such moments, Hazel's insight and strength continued to amaze me. Later that evening, I sat in my home office reviewing files for the next case on our docket, a network of real estate developers involved in a complex scheme of bribes and kickbacks. Hazel knocked on the open door, dressed casually now in jeans in an oversized RISD sweatshirt. "Still working?" she asked, leaning against the door frame. "Just finishing up," I replied, closing the folder. "Did you reach Riley?" Hazel nodded. "She saw the sentencing on the news. Said to tell you congratulations." She entered the room, taking a seat across from my desk. She also mentioned that Teddy's book has a publisher. It'll be out next spring. "Good for him," I said sincerely. Teddy Lambert had transformed himself over the past year, using his insider knowledge of the family's corruption to become a vocal advocate for financial regulatory reform. His forthcoming memoir promised to be both a personal redemption story and a scathing expose of privilege run amok. "Mom called, too," Hazel added carefully. This was less unexpected than it would have been a year ago. After months of refusing contact, Hazel had finally agreed to visit Natalie in prison 6 months earlier. Their relationship remained complicated. Hazel was unwilling to forgive completely, but also unwilling to sever ties entirely. "How is she?" I asked neutrally. "Doing okay. Teaching a GED class for other inmates now." Hazel hesitated. She asked about you, actually. Wanted to know if you were happy. The question gave me pause. Was I happy? The past year had been intense. My days were filled with work that was meaningful but often draining. The corruption we uncovered, the lives destroyed by greed and power, it could be disheartening. Yet there was satisfaction in knowing we were making a difference. And there was joy in watching Hazel flourish, in sharing a home with her when she was not at school, and in rebuilding our relationship after the years partially lost to the Lambert schemes. I am content, I answered honestly. Not the way I expected to be using my skills, but the work matters. Hazel studied me thoughtfully. You never did forgive her, did you? Mom, no, I admitted. Some betrayals go too deep for forgiveness. What about grandfather? Or Dominic? Did you forgive them before they died? Harvey had passed away a year ago, taking many of his secrets to the grave. Dominic, surprisingly, had died just 3 months earlier, an apparent suicide in his prison cell after learning of the expanded investigation into his network of corruption. No, I said again. I did not forgive them either. Does that make it harder? She asked. Carrying that with you? I considered her question carefully. There's a difference between forgiveness and moving forward. I do not need to forgive what they did to find purpose and meaning in my life now. I looked at my remarkable daughter. You taught me that, actually. Me? The way you handled everything. You did not let bitterness consume you, but you also did not pretend what happened was not wrong. I smiled slightly. You found a way to acknowledge the harm without letting it define you. Hazel was quiet for a moment. I have a confession, she said finally. When I first found out what they did to you, I planned my own revenge before I ever brought you back into it. This surprised me. What kind of revenge? Nothing as sophisticated as what you came up with, she admitted with a small smile. Teenage stuff, mostly exposing their secrets at a family gathering, making a scene, public humiliation. What changed? I realized it would not really fix anything, she said thoughtfully. And then I started thinking about what you would do, not the you they had described to me all those years, but the real you, the one I remembered from before the separation and the one I got to know during our visits. And what did you think I would do? I asked, genuinely curious. Something methodical, something just. Something that would make things right, not just punish the guilty. She looked at me directly. I decided to be more like you. The simple statement touched me deeply. I am honored you thought that way, I said softly. Though I am not sure I deserve such faith. You do, she insisted. Look at what you've built from the ruins they left you in. Not just your career, but this new path helping others get justice against people who thought they were untouchable. Her words made me reflect on the journey that had brought us here. From the broken architect determined to reclaim his reputation to the special consultant helping dismantle networks of corruption that had once seemed untouchable. I never expected this path, I admitted. When I planned my return to the Lambert family reunion, all I wanted was to expose what they had done to me, to clear my name and make them pay. I gazed at the wall of my office where newspaper clippings chronicled the fall of not just the Lamberts, but a dozen other powerful figures we helped bring to justice over the past year. Now I understand that what they did to me was not unique. It was just one example of how the powerful protect themselves and destroy anyone who threatens their position. I turned back to Hazel. What started as personal has become something larger. Something better, she suggested. Different, I corrected. I do not regret what I did to the Lamberts. I do not lose sleep over Harvey dying without my forgiveness or Dominic ending his life in that prison cell. They earned every consequence they faced. Hazel studied me, her expression thoughtful. The reporter today asked if you felt vindicated. You did not really answer. Because vindication is not quite the right word, I explained. Vindication suggests I needed external validation, that I required the world to acknowledge I was wronged. I shook my head. I always knew the truth. What I needed was justice. And that's what I got. My phone buzzed with a text from Agent Harlow. Next briefing tomorrow, 9 a.m. New evidence on the Wilson case. This one's bigger than we thought. Hazel noticed my expression. Another case? Always another case, I confirmed. The work never really ends. She stood, stretching. I should let you rest then. I promised Riley I'd video call her tonight anyway. At the door, she paused. Oh, I almost forgot. I got an interesting call from Mrs. Perry today. How is she? Good. The foundation we set up for former Lambert employees has helped her secure a nice retirement. Hazel hesitated. She mentioned that Vivian is trying to make contact with me. Apparently, she's been sober for 6 months and wants to reconnect with family. How do you feel about that? I asked carefully. Hazel's expression hardened in a way that reminded me of myself. The same way I felt when Uncle Preston made similar attempts last month. They had years to be decent, supportive family members. Years to tell the truth about what happened to you. They chose loyalty to wealth and status instead. She shook her head firmly. Some bridges stay burned. Pride mixed with a touch of concern filled me. Hazel had inherited more than just my eye color. She deabsorbed my uncompromising stance toward betrayal. You resure that's what you want? I asked. Closing those doors permanently? I learned from you, Dad, she said simply. We do not forgive betrayers. We move forward without them. After she left, I sat in the quiet of my office contemplating her words. Had I taught her to be too hard, too unforgiving? Or had I simply prepared her for a world where loyalty was rare and betrayal common? The question lingered as I prepared for bed. Sleep came easily these days, a marked change from the years after the separation when insomnia had been my constant companion. The peace of justice served, perhaps? The following morning I met Agent Harlow at the Federal Building downtown. She greeted me with her usual professional nod, sliding a thick folder across the conference table. The Wilson investigation has expanded, she explained as I reviewed the documents. We've identified connections to 3 state Supreme Court justices and a federal banking regulator. Following the money, I asked, noting the complex financial transactions outlined in the reports. Always, she replied, studying me with her perceptive gaze. You know, when I first agreed to take your case against the Lamberts, I thought you were just another bitter ex-husband with a grudge. I raised an eyebrow. And now? Now I understand you were the canary in the coal mine, she said simply. The corruption you experienced personally was just the visible edge of something systemic. I was lucky, I observed. Most people who are destroyed by the powerful never get the chance to fight back. Which is why this work matters, she concluded, tapping the folder. Ready to continue? I nodded, fully committed to the path that had emerged from the ashes of my former life. Always. Later that week, Hazel returned to our ISD for her sophomore year. I drove her to the airport. Our conversation ranged easily from her upcoming design projects to the latest developments in our ongoing investigations. You'll call if you need anything, I confirmed as we approached the departure terminal. Of course, she promised. And you'll let me know when the Wilson case breaks. As much as I am legally allowed to share, I agreed with a smile. We embraced before she gathered her bags. The bond between us was stronger than ever after all we endured and accomplished together. Dad, she said just before turning to go, do you ever wonder what would have happened if you just let it go? If you accepted what the Lamberts did and moved on without seeking justice? The question caught me off guard. Sometimes, I admit it, I might have had a quieter life. Perhaps even a happier one in some ways. But not a better one, she said with certainty. I considered this. No, I agreed finally. Not better. There's value in standing firm, in refusing to accept injustice even when fighting it comes at a cost. That's what I thought, she said with a satisfied nod. See you at Thanksgiving. As I watched her disappear into the terminal, confident and purposeful, I reflected on the twisted path that had led us here. 5 years ago, standing outside the Lambert estate as my daughter warned me away from the main entrance, I could never have predicted where that moment would lead. The destruction of the Lambert dynasty had not been my end goal, but merely the first domino in a sequence that continued to unfold. What had begun as my personal quest for justice had expanded into something that might, in some small way, help rebalance scales that had been tipped in favor of the powerful for too long. I drove away from the airport already mentally reviewing the next case awaiting my attention. The road ahead would not be easy. Powerful people rarely surrendered their advantages without a fight, but I was no longer walking it alone. Harvey Lambert's final words to me echoed in my memory. In the end, you won. Remember that. He'd been right, but not in the way he meant. My victory was not just in bringing down the Lamberts. It was in refusing to be broken by what they did. In rebuilding not just my life, but my relationship with my daughter. In transforming personal injustice into a broader mission for accountability, I had won, not by becoming like them, though I had matched their ruthlessness when necessary, but by remaining fundamentally different, by valuing truth over convenience. Justice over power, integrity over advantage. As I merged onto the highway back toward the city, I felt something that had been rare in the years following the Lambert betrayal, contentment, not happiness, exactly. I remained too clear-eyed about the world's injustices for that. But a deep satisfaction in knowing that I had faced the worst the powerful could do and emerged not just intact, but stronger. Some might call my continued refusal to forgive the Lamberts a weakness, a sign that they still held power over me. But I knew better. My unforgiving memory was not a burden but a strength, a reminder of why the work I now did mattered. In the end, the broken architect had not just rebuilt his own life, but had found a way to help repair the very systems that had once been weaponized against him. Not with forgiveness, but with relentless pursuit of justice. Not with forgetting, but with transforming memory into purpose. That was a victory worth winning.